What if the most expensive renovation in White House history was never really about a ballroom at all? For months, Americans watched construction crews tear apart the historic East Wing of the White House. They watched a beloved piece of American architecture come down, replaced by what the president called a ballroom. Critics mocked it, historians mourned it, architects dissected every flaw. The debate became political theater, a flashpoint between those who supported the president and those who opposed him. But on a Sunday night flight aboard Air Force One, something changed. Donald Trump, almost casually, revealed to reporters that the ballroom was never the full story. Beneath the gilded surface of that controversial $400 million project, the United States military has been quietly constructing something else entirely, something that was, in Trump's own words, supposed to remain secret. The world had been arguing about aesthetics. The real conversation, it turns out, was about something far more serious. Here is what we know, and more importantly, what it means. The East Wing of the White House was demolished in late 2025 to make way for what the Trump administration described as a grand ballroom, a Mar-a-Lago-inspired entertainment and event space that would serve future generations of American leadership. The project was approved by the U.S. Commission of Fine Arts and carried a price tag of roughly $400 million. Trump repeatedly insisted the entire project was privately funded through donations and that not a single dollar of taxpayer money was involved. On Sunday evening, while speaking to journalists aboard Air Force One, Trump revealed that the military is building a large complex underneath the ballroom. He described the ballroom itself as essentially a structural cover, a shell designed to protect what lies beneath. Trump referred to the ballroom as a kind of shed shielding those inside from drones and other threats. He also confirmed that the windows installed throughout the new structure are not decorative. The glass is described as extremely thick and high-grade bulletproof material, making every window in the structure a security feature. This was not a minor detail slipped into a press briefing. This was the President of the United States confirming that a secret military installation was being built directly beneath the most famous address in the world, and that a lawsuit had forced that secret into the open. Now let us step back and understand the depth of what is happening here. The White House has always been more than a home or an office. It is a symbol of American power, a nerve center of global decision-making, and a target that adversaries around the world have studied for decades. Every president who has lived there has done so knowing that the building carries genuine risk. The security infrastructure surrounding it has evolved constantly, mostly out of sight, mostly in silence. What Trump has now confirmed is that this evolution is continuing at a scale that goes far beyond anything publicly discussed before. A military complex being built beneath the White House is not an ordinary renovation. It suggests hardened command and control capability. It suggests the kind of fortified, survivable space that military planners build when they are thinking about the most serious scenarios imaginable. Scenarios involving coordinated attacks, infrastructure failure, or situations where the seat of American government must continue to function even when the surface world above it cannot. Trump had previously said at a cabinet meeting that the military wanted the ballroom renovations more than anybody else, a statement that, at the time, seemed like an odd justification for a luxury entertainment space. In hindsight, that comment now reads differently. The military did not want a ballroom. The military wanted what the ballroom would hide. This also explains several details about the construction that critics had found puzzling. Architecture observers had pointed out features of the new East Wing that seemed to serve no obvious design purpose. Fake windows, stairs that appeared to lead nowhere. These are not the hallmarks of sloppy design. In secure construction, what appears purposeless from the outside often serves a highly specific structural or concealment function on the inside. The architectural criticism was real, but it was also, unknowingly, missing the entire point of the building. Then there is the lawsuit. This is where the story becomes even more layered. The details of the underground construction had been intended to remain classified. Trump himself acknowledged this, saying the secret had been exposed because of a lawsuit that he described as a stupid and unpatriotic action. He had made similar remarks in January, posting on Truth Social that the project was designed with the consent and approval of the highest levels of the U.S. military and Secret Service, and lamenting that the lawsuit had already exposed what was supposed to be a top-secret fact. This is a significant tension. On one hand, democratic societies operate on the principle that citizens have a right to know how their government spends money and what is being built in their name, especially on a national landmark. On the other hand, there are genuine national security arguments for keeping certain defensive installations classified. The people who filed that lawsuit were likely acting on principle, pursuing transparency on a public project. The result, intended or not, was the exposure of a military secret. What does this mean for ordinary Americans and for the world watching from outside? For Americans, the reaction is predictably divided along political lines, but the underlying facts deserve a more measured analysis. If the United States government is investing in hardened presidential infrastructure, the question is not whether that is appropriate. Most security experts would say it is, but whether the process surrounding it has been handled responsibly. A $400 million project financed, according to Trump, entirely through private donors, sitting on top of what is now confirmed to be a military installation, raises genuine governance questions. Who are these donors? What access or influence comes with that level of private investment in the most sensitive piece of real estate in the country? These are questions that transcend partisan loyalty. They are questions about the structure of power itself. For the rest of the world, this revelation lands differently. To foreign governments and intelligence agencies, the confirmation of an underground military complex at the White House sends a deliberate signal. It says that the American presidency is preparing for scenarios of unprecedented disruption. It says that the United States is hardening its command infrastructure in a way that has not been this visible or this openly confirmed before. Whether that is reassuring or alarming depends entirely on which side of American foreign policy you stand. There is also a historical dimension worth considering. Underground military infrastructure at the White House is not a new concept. The Presidential Emergency Operations Center already exists beneath the East Wing. It was where Vice President Cheney was taken on September 11, 2001. What Trump is now describing appears to be something that significantly expands on that existing capability. A complex large enough to require a $400 million surface structure above it is not a modest upgrade. It is a generational investment in continuity of government. The timing matters too. This construction began and accelerated during a period of heightened global instability. Reports from the same week as Trump's Air Force One comments mentioned U.S. ground forces arriving in the Middle East and rising American casualties amid escalating conflict with Iran. The world is not at peace. The major powers are rearranging themselves in ways not seen for decades. In that context, a president choosing to fortify the seat of American government is not simply an act of vanity or self-preservation. It is a strategic choice that reflects how those at the highest levels of power currently assess the threat environment. What happens next is a story that will unfold on multiple fronts simultaneously. Legally, the lawsuit that exposed these details is still moving through the courts. The outcome of that case could determine how much more the public learns, or how quickly that information gets sealed behind national security protections. There will be pressure from both sides. Those who believe in government transparency will push for disclosure. Those who prioritize operational security will push back hard. Politically, Congress will eventually have to grapple with the question of oversight. Even if the ballroom's surface cost is privately funded, a military installation beneath it involves military resources, military personnel, and military decisions. That means congressional oversight committees have both the authority and the responsibility to examine what is being built and why. Whether those committees have the will to do so is another question entirely. Architecturally and historically, the East Wing will never be what it was. The debate about the aesthetics of the new structure will continue, but it will now carry a different weight, knowing that the design choices were shaped not by a decorator's vision, but by military and security specifications. And at the center of it all is a president who stood before reporters on a Sunday night flight and revealed almost matter-of-factly that the most watched construction project in America was always something more than it appeared. Whether that revelation was calculated, careless, or simply the confidence of someone who believes they can say anything, that is a judgment each viewer must make for themselves. But here is the thought that should stay with you long after this video ends. The most powerful government in the world built something underground, in plain sight, hidden beneath the distraction of a debate about architecture and aesthetics. And the only reason the world knows about it today is because someone filed a lawsuit, the kind of ordinary civic action that powerful people often dismiss as irrelevant, inconvenient, or unpatriotic. Sometimes the most important truths are not uncovered by intelligence agencies or investigative journalists. Sometimes they are forced into the light by a single person who simply decided to ask a question and refused to stop asking. That is not just a story about a ballroom. That is a story about how power works and how occasionally it gets caught.